welcome to Time for Health. I'm your host, Rachel Fall, and we're very glad you've joined us. Today, we're going to talk about organ and tissue donation. We always like to share a topic that might be useful for people, and this is a really important topic. I feel like we've maybe talked about this in the past, but it's been a long time, and I'm sure things have changed. So we have Tim Boulware here. Thank you for being with us.
Mm-hmm. And I'm the Community Development Coordinator with Community Tissue Services.
All right.
Not to steal your thunder.
Oh, no. You go right ahead. So I've heard organ donation and tissue donation. Talk about what it is or what the difference is.
Well, organs, basically you're looking at, it is a life-saving gift in terms of, you have the heart, the liver, the lungs. Of course, you have both pairs of lungs. Kidneys, you have two pairs of kidneys, and pancreas and intestines. So when someone's near death, they can donate those. And there's two ways of doing that. There's death by cognitive death, DCD. Well, actually, that's the heart death, or brain death. So there's both ways. And actually, the DCD deaths are the ones that are increasing in number in terms of those organ donations.
Gotcha.
The importance of organ donation is very important because there are 114,000 people on the waiting list nationally, about 3,400 in Ohio. And so if you imagine, we talk about fall and football season in Ohio Stadium or Michigan Stadium. If you're a Michigan fan, because we want to be equal here. I don't want anybody writing me.
No.
So you would have an overflow crowd by the people waiting, the equivalent of that number waiting on the donor list, the waiting list. So that's why it's so important to be able to let people know about that. Life Connection of Ohio works more with organs. Community Tissue Services works with tissue. You're talking about ACLs, MCLs for your orthopedic injuries, sometimes heart valves. You get saphenous veins, which can, they improve circulation if you're about to lose a limb. So they'll do a tunneling graft for that. And then we talk about corneas, which can restore sight to up to 2 people. So that's the main difference there between the two. So and the main thing with tissue donation is that one donor can help improve the lives of up to 125 people on the average. And a lot of people don't know that. I mean, they're shocked by those numbers.
Yeah.
So it really, in terms of mobility, in terms of improving that quality of life, tissue donation is definitely right up there. And that's what we try to do in talking about both those aspects. And then we do presentations to nursing staffs and orientations to help bring awareness of that.
Okay, so the organs and the tissues that could donate are, I'll never remember, there's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you can donate, they can split the liver in some cases. So one donor for organs can save the lives for up to 9 people. On the average, it's about 3.3, but that's increased. That's increased from 2.5 just over a few years ago. So we are making significant improvement in that. And then one donor for tissue can improve the lives up to 125 people. As a matter of fact, we had a donor a few months ago who had as many as 600 grafts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that is really amazing. And tissue donation is really becoming a lot, because prior to COVID, last year we had like 675,000 tissue grafts that we processed.
Wow.
Now that's up to 765,000.
Wow.
And that's what all those elective surgeries being postponed last year during the peak of COVID.
Right. How can somebody become a donor? I help people do advanced directives, and I feel like in the packet now there's the living will and the healthcare power of attorney and some DNR stuff, but there's a organ donation as well. So how can somebody, I know there's a couple different ways.
Well, the good news is when you register, you're on the donor registry for all of them. For organs, for tissues, for cornea. So there's not something that you have to make a directive for or not. Now, you can specify, if you do it online, what organs and tissues you would like to donate. That includes research. It's called a directed donation.
Okay.
So you can do that, specify. The good news is once you say yes, they'll never ask you again unless you want to change that answer.
Sure. So you can go online, that's an option?
Yeah, in Bureau of Motor Vehicles, you can go online. Or you can go to donatelifeohio.org.
Okay.
And that's a way of doing that. And so when a person's near death, the hospitals don't have access to that information. So one of the misconceptions is that if doctors and nurses know that someone's on the donor registry, their quality of care and trying to improve them and make them have a full recovery wouldn't be the same effort as if they're off the donor registry. But they don't have access to those records, and we don't even at the hospital. But we do check on that, and we do a thorough check in terms of somebody is a donor or not, and then we just make the approach to the family.
Gotcha. So people can do it ahead of time. They can go online. You can do it when you renew your driver's license and all that kind of stuff. And then in the advanced directives, I think there's a form to fill out that you probably send to Donate Life Ohio, whatever, to do that stuff. But if somebody doesn't designate whether they want to be an organ donor,
then we find out if they're eligible, and then we make the approach to the family. If they say no, that's it, no questions asked. If they do, then we would begin that process. And for tissue, it's impossible anyway to not have the approval of the family, because they need to do what's called a donor risk assessment interview, or what's called a DRE. And basically that goes over an entire medical history to see what people would qualify for in terms of what tissues to donate. So for organ donation, that's a little different. But obviously, and they want the family on board. That's the main thing.
Well, and I was just thinking, what a difficult conversation if that person never had that conversation with their family. If you're the first person to broach the topic with a family at that moment of.
Well, and that's why it is so important. A couple of things that we note of. One thing in the presentations, we ask that the hospital does not make the initial approach, but they are our eyes and ears. So they can tell us how the family is doing. I mean, if it's a sudden death, like an accident or something, that's completely different than somebody's in their upper 70s and they've been battling with health problems for a while. And that may be more expected, so the family may be more receptive to that. But there are eyes and ears to tell us how the family is doing. And then if they are eligible, then we'll make that approach with hospital staff. They have in-house coordinators with Life Connection of Ohio. That's all they do. Family Services works very hard with that. And then we have a lot of remembrance things that we do. And we had teddy bears and heartbeat, the heartbeat recordings and things of that nature, and honor walks, and that's been kind of sidelined with COVID, but they do a lot of things to remember. The main thing to know is that we offer that support for the family. They're losing their loved one. I lost my mom a couple years ago, and it is one of the most difficult things to say goodbye. But we are trying to give people that option to improve somebody else's life or to save somebody else's life when the end is near for their loved one. Yeah.
And what a gift to your own family to have that conversation. Is that kind of like one of your goals probably when going out and sharing education is please have that conversation amongst yourselves, amongst your family, make that designation on your driver's license, or even if you don't want to, if for some reason you feel very strongly and you don't want to or whatever, have that conversation too, because don't leave it up to the family who's,
Yeah. Well, and that's very important. And it's hard for us to have that conversation about our own mortality. I imagine getting life insurance. Somebody says, well, I don't need life insurance. Well, you don't know when the end's going to be. And so we have to prepare for that in certain ways. And, this is some of the things that people will say, well, are my religions against it? Well, actually, all major religions in the U.S. support donation as an act of generosity and love. You can have an open casket funeral because they do complete reconstruction. So the main viewpoint is to work with the funeral homes to make sure that no one will know that someone has been a donor. Right. And then lastly, you have I lost my train of thought. No cost to the families.
Oh, okay. That was one of my questions.
That is done by the recovery organizations. Okay. So, I mean, the families are incurring enough of costs with funerals. I mean, the average is at least $5,000, maybe more now. Yeah. I mean, that's why my family did prepay for their funerals. Sure. So, we don't want to add to that burden. We want this to be an experience that, even though it's so difficult, that everyone feels it was well worth it. Good. The thing about it is that families will say they never regretted donation, but then we have some families who regretted their
Not
loved one didn't
doing it, yeah.
do donation.
I've heard people say over the years, oh, you don't want my organs or my tissue. But when you gave that list in the beginning, there's so, okay, maybe you have heart disease, but you have great skin, or your cornea is intact, or you know what I mean? So that's not necessarily true. There's so many organs and tissues that could be a blessing to somebody else that.
Yeah, and you don't know who you're going to affect or who you're going to, I mean, there's somebody who might be at the end. I mean, you have that many people on the waiting list. 20 people die on the waiting list for organs every day, and 10 people are added to that list. Now, the good news is we have 35,000 people who do save lives every year when you talk about organ donation. So that really makes a significant difference. So, and if somebody is eligible for organs, they may be eligible for tissue. And if somebody isn't eligible for tissue, they can still restore sight to up to 2 people through cornea. So regardless of it, it makes a difference. We'll check the charts to make sure that somebody is
and
eligible.
there's a whole process behind the scenes that, I'm sure.
So, and that's what we tell the nurses, when we just ask to call the donor referral center within that hour of death, and then don't infer that somebody may not be eligible. They actually had one donor who had been previously COVID positive at Life Connection of Ohio. So medical technology is advancing every single day.
Right.
So a no today may not be a no tomorrow.
Right, yeah. What about ages? Is there an age, I'm too old, or any age limits?
No, there is no age limits.
Okay.
I mean,
Condition is more of an issue rather than age.
Condition is more of what they look for,
Okay.
and certain things with history, any high-risk behavior or something of that extent may preclude somebody from doing that. Now, the thing is, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that maybe somebody may be precluded, but it's that one reason that somebody they're living a healthy lifestyle, and it happens all of a sudden somebody passes away, and they may be able to donate. So I mean, we see donors from very young to very elderly.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's just a whole gamut range, and you don't know somebody's waiting for your donation that might be able to help or even save their life.
Yeah. Now, if somebody wants to donate their body to science, that's something totally different, and they work with the medical school or whatever. They have to make arrangements long in advance of something happening, if I'm not mistaken. So this is different than that.
Yeah, that's different. Now, we did have somebody recently that did do that, so they did donate to science, but there was, I think we still even had some tissues that they were looked at for possibilities of eligibility for them to be able to donate. So it's one of those things. And the research, I mean, if even somebody is eligible for that and they did donate to science or whatever, that scientific research could save many more lives than even the tissue donation would just on its own merit.
Very cool. Any last minute thoughts before we stop?
Well, I just think that people just need to have that conversation with their loved ones. Just tell them that this is an act of sacrifice and helping people. I mean, it's a selfless act.
It's pay it forward, if ever there was a pay it forward.
Yeah, and those final wishes, and that's what we do at partnering with Life Connection of Ohio and of course Community Tissue Services. We want to be able to, anybody who wants to be that donor, we want to try to give them that opportunity at the end of their lives. 60% of people are on the donor registration. 90% of people, according to polls, support donation. So in making all that, it's just a matter of just making sure that people are assured that they're doing the right thing and that they are making an impact.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you for your time, Rachel.
All right. I want to thank Tim for being our guest today. Again, a super important topic, and we probably don't necessarily maybe think much about it unless you know somebody who is in need of a transplant or needs some services like that. But it's really important, so I encourage you to look at your driver's license, talk to your family. It might be a weird conversation, but have the conversation because it just makes it easier down the road. So take this information for yourself, share it with somebody else. If you have ideas for future programs, you can reach out to me at Magruder or Mrs. Pels at the high school. And until we meet again, I encourage you to make time for health.